Yeah. I've written in nothing else. All right, everyone. I think we'll get started. If some more people trickle in, that's fine. I'm Lucas Piazza. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope that my email scared you all into coming to this event. I know a lot of you guys are anxious about graduating in now 36 days, but when we entered university 4 years ago, we knew this day was coming, so hopefully you guys are preparing yourselves for the next step, and coming to this is definitely a great first step. So I want to introduce Taylor Yunis. He's an alum of the school, graduated in 2007, and he now works in New York City in the real estate industry. So he'll be telling us about finding your first apartment. A lot of it is about New York City, but certainly applies to the broader country as well. So thank you, Taylor.
Great. Thanks, Lucas. Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining me today. I'm Taylor Yunis, and I'm delighted to be back on campus. I want to thank Matt Siegel. This was his idea to do this, and to Lucas for all of his efforts in coordinating everything so flawlessly. And also to Chrissy Harrison, the Assistant Director of Recent Graduate Engagement, who I hope you'll have a relationship with in the future. So I want to tell you about my experiences living and working in New York for the last 4.5 years, and give you some points that I think can help you as you start this new chapter of your life. It's all very confusing. I've been there. I had a lot of anxiety when I moved to New York. I wondered where I would live, where I would work, how much it would all cost, and how I would pay for it all. So I hope that I can help lessen your anxiety a bit. I'm sure you all have reasons for moving to a place like New York. There's tremendous job and income opportunities, great dating pool, cultural, artistic, educational options, food, shopping, and you get what I call a real-life post-collegiate education. This is me at age 3, and this is me with Professor Jeff Tucker at age 23. I knew as much at age 3 about life after college as I did at 23. I moved to New York with no job and no place to live. And I had never done an internship during college, so I had trouble getting hired for a full-time job. I did end up getting hired as an intern after college at the robust hourly wage of $7.15. So people would say, people I worked with asked me, how long is your internship, and where did I go to school? And I was like, well, I went to the University of Rochester, and but I already graduated. And they said, well, how long will you be here? And I said, well, I'll be here either until you hire me full-time or ask me to leave. So they did hire me full-time, but looking back, that may have been a bit aggressive. When they hired me, my starting salary was $27,500 a year. I was really rolling in the dough. And so this leads me to some of the cons of living in New York. Lack of garbage plates is obviously a problem. Excess of actual garbage. It's noisy and dirty, and it's very expensive. My suggestion is that you find a place to live, get settled, and then find your job, because New York is a very fast-paced city. Most employers will not hire someone who doesn't already live in the city. They don't want to wait for you to find an apartment because that takes a lot of time. Some employers will interview a candidate and then have them start just days later. So you should start looking for your apartment about 4 weeks before you plan to move in. And a few words about jobs. You're much more likely to find your job through someone you know than by looking online. You're all graduating seniors and you generally don't have a lot of work experience, so the best way to set yourself apart is to get in front of people and show them that you're unique and valuable. A headhunter, for example, is a great way to get interviews. That's a person who matches applicants with jobs. And I actually brought brochures from my friend Amity, who's a great headhunter. That's something that I had never heard of. I didn't know that there was someone who could help me, who I wouldn't have to pay, who could get me interviews, because I would apply for things online and never hear back. I don't know, maybe some of you have already started doing that. Another point is that social media jobs are very hot right now in New York, and there are specific headhunters who work with social media jobs, and if you want a contact for that, you could just ask me after. I'll also say, don't be shy to ask anyone you know for help in finding a job. Most people want to help. If they say no, don't worry about it. If you get an interview and they say no, don't take it personally. It has nothing to do with your self-worth or your value as a person. It's just business. Not every job is right for every person. The key is to be persistent and don't stop until you achieve your goal. And speaking of goals, now that you're all graduating, my advice to you is to be in the habit of making goals. Whatever it is that you want for the next 5 years, write it down. Whether it's to move to New York, work for Google, become a doctor, get married, write it down. The reason that I think goals are important is the same reason that it's important to know where you're going to go before you get in the car and start driving. When you're a sophomore and you figure out your major, and some of you have 3 majors, I don't know who you are, but you need to calm down. You figure out with your advisor what courses you need to take so that you can graduate on time. Apply the same principles to your career and to your living situation. Know what you're looking for before you start looking. With apartments, you can start by knowing what you can afford. Now, I know if you don't know what your salary is going to be, that may be difficult to determine your budget, but I would say try to find a comfortable and inexpensive place to start out. You can always move later on. So, in your first job, you might not be able to afford much unless you're an investment banker or something like that. So, landlords generally have income requirements which are 40 times the monthly rent. So just to give you an example, if the rent is $2,500 a month, most landlords are looking for you to make a total of $100,000. So whether it's between roommates or whether it's you individually, that's a lot of money, right? So if the tenants don't earn that much, or if you don't even have a job yet, then you need to have 1 or more guarantors. I'm going to talk more about guarantors in a minute. But basically, a guarantor is someone who will ensure to the landlord that the rent will be paid. Usually people use their parents or a relative. So some people say that you shouldn't spend more than 30% of your income on housing. This is just something that people say across the board. But in New York, I've heard of people spending as much as 50% of their income on rent. That's probably not comfortable, but some people do it. And then on top of the rent, you have to consider utilities. Heat and hot water are almost invariably included in New York City. So you would pay for gas, which, for your stove, and electricity and cable, and that can range from $100 to more than $300 a month, depending on the size of the apartment, how green you are, perhaps, with air conditioning. So guarantors, as I said, usually it's a parent or relative. They will have to give financial information to the landlord in order to qualify for the apartment, and then they'll sign a page of your lease at lease signing, which they enter into the contract and say, if my son or daughter or relative doesn't pay the rent, I will. So they need to, the requirements are doubled for guarantors. So they need to earn 80 times the monthly rent. So on that $2,500 a month apartment, they need to make $200,000. It's a lot of money. Most landlords will allow tenants to have multiple guarantors. So if it's you and 2 or 3 roommates and all of your parents are guarantors, then it's easier to make that $200,000 number. And then the documents that are necessary, some people perceive applying for an apartment as very invasive. Having to give over their tax return, social security number, the landlords perform a credit check on them, and they need your social security number in order to perform that check. Pay stubs from their job, bank statements, bank account numbers, and then the credit check application fee is not a lot. It's generally about $35 to $150 per applicant. So if you're applying with your parents, then it would be 2 application fees, or however many people are involved in the transaction. Generally, a credit check is done on each person. And then, of course, photo ID. Some apartments, you will have to put it down a deposit at the time you apply for it in order to secure that apartment. And because the market in New York is so competitive, generally they want you to commit to it, and they'll then take it off of the market so that they won't rent it to other people. So brokerage fees. In New York right now, the rental market is extremely strong. That can change at any time, but as a general rule, the rental market in New York is extremely strong. It's the most competitive housing market in the country. And since Manhattan is an island, there's not a lot of additional land available for them to add extra housing units. So brokerage fees could range from a month of rent to 15% of the annual rent. It's not legal for them to collect more than 15% of the annual rent, so if anyone tries to do that, it's not okay. So on that $2,500 a month apartment, the brokerage fee is $4,500. Now, if you stay in an apartment and you renew your lease, you don't keep paying the brokerage fee, but upfront, that's what you'll pay. There are some no-fee apartments available. Often what I find is like a large luxury building that has its own on-site leasing office. You could go to the building directly and not pay a brokerage fee if you find it on the internet or by walking by. However, generally those apartments are more expensive. In many cases, a no-fee apartment may be more expensive because they're paying to operate that leasing office and they're paying the broker eventually, so the rent is a little bit inflated. What is this $4,500 for? What will the broker do for me? They can guide you through this process step by step, which, as I said earlier, is confusing and anxiety-provoking. They can save you time and effort. You know, finding an apartment can be like a full-time job. You know, a lot of my clients will tell their boss they need to leave work early to see an apartment, to sign a lease, whatever. It takes up a lot of time and energy. If you don't have a job, then by all means, spend all of your time finding an apartment. They'll listen to your requirements and show you appropriate choices. I can't tell you how many people will see an apartment advertised online that seems amazing, but they get there and something is wrong with it. And so a good broker who knows the inventory and knows the neighborhood that they're working in will likely say, oh, well, you told me that you wanted something with an open view that doesn't face a brick wall. Let's skip that one and move on to the next one. So that can be helpful. Avoid fake listings or seeing the same thing twice. So, you know, a lot of people use Craigslist for housing for every need that they have, some people. A lot of what's on Craigslist, in my personal opinion, I would say something like 30 to maybe even 50% is in one way or another not completely genuine. Whether it's that it's a completely fake listing where they have photos of the apartment and it seems too good to be true, and you call and the broker says, oh, I'm sorry that's not available anymore, but I'll be happy to show you something similar. A lot of brokers, that's how they get their clients, is they just want to make the phone ring, and if they can establish a connection with you, then they'll try to show you other apartments. And Craigslist, I think, tends toward that more than other websites because you're not required to post the address. Some websites you are required to post the address, and then you could check to see if it's genuine or walk by or whatever. A good broker will make sure you're in a good building. So, you know, I would say that every person who lives in New York City can have some complaint about their landlord or their management company. It's just the nature of it. I'm sure you have complaints about Sue B or whatever, and that's just how it goes. However, there are a few, not many, a few management companies that I would advise my clients to completely stay away from, and a good broker will know that and just make sure you're in a well-managed building. Also, ensure that you're qualified and prepared to apply for the apartment so that you don't miss out. So frequently what will happen is a great apartment will come onto the market, a bunch of people will see it in the course of a morning or a day, and some people will have all of those things I mentioned earlier, tax returns and all those things ready, and if they present that to the broker or to the landlord, then they are going to be the ready, willing, and able applicant, and they'll get the apartment. But if you say, oh, I love it, but let me just call my parents and I'll have those tax returns to you in 48 hours, they're probably not going to get it. So have all those things ready and be ready to go, because you can miss out if you are not prepared. And a good broker will make sure that you are. I would say choose an experienced rental agent at a reputable company. If you don't know how to do that, you can ask me and I'll give you some people's names. But with more than 25,000 real estate professionals in New York City, there is no reason that you should be unhappy with your broker or have someone who's unprofessional or who doesn't know what they're doing. In my second job, I had this guy would call me 15 minutes before the appointment and ask me to show an apartment, and he would show up in sweatpants and he was like hungover, and I thought, why would anyone tolerate a broker like that? You know, so you can have someone professional who you're comfortable with, and if you're not comfortable, then move on to the next one. So now I'm going to show you pictures of actual apartments. This one was on the market a couple weeks ago, so it's very recent. And as I go through the pictures, I'll describe the apartment to you, and then I want you to guess and tell me how much you think the apartment rents for, and you may get a prize if you guess correctly or even close to correctly. So this apartment is in Morningside Heights, which is near Columbia University. So this is near the 125th Street stop of the 1 train on the west side of Manhattan, and it's also close to the Manhattan School of Music. So this is a bedroom of the apartment. It faces east. There's nice hardwood flooring. It's a 3-bedroom apartment with 1 bath. Now, this apartment and many others it was originally a 2-bedroom, and it was converted to a 3. It originally had a dining room and a living room. So this was the living room. It's now a bedroom. The next room you're going to see was originally the dining room because it's next to the kitchen, and that becomes the common room or the living room. So this is the living room looking into that bedroom, so they separated with these doors. It used to be an archway like that. It's got a nice kitchen, granite tile flooring. That's a huge kitchen for New York. It has a dishwasher that's relatively unusual, a window in it, and this is one of the bedrooms. There's another bedroom that's not pictured that's about the same size. It has a small closet, interior facing window, and typical New York City bathroom. It's got an old clawfoot tub, white subway tiling, a window. That's always nice to have in the bathroom. So here are all the facts about it. It's also close to Riverside Park, which is beautiful, along the Hudson River. It does have an elevator. There's a small laundry room, and the superintendent lives there. So, any guesses? Yeah.
4,500.
Okay.
Say 5,000 a month.
Uh-huh.
I'm going lower. I was going to say maybe around 3,500, maybe 4,000.
Okay.
7,500.
Okay.
I was going to go 2,900.
2,900. Any other guesses? Okay. 6,000? Uh-huh. Okay. It's 2,600 a month. Yeah.
I was the closest. No,
2,900 guy gets a U of R water bottle. By the way, thank you guys for sending me this. I'm going to need another water bottle. So that one actually has no brokerage fee. So in this situation, the owner has his own brokers, and they're renting out the apartments. So this one, you avoid a brokerage fee. The way to find this apartment is listed on streeteasy.com. Oops. They also have their own website. So they are out there. The next thing, so you're looking at these apartments, you're with your broker, hopefully not the guy who's wearing sweatpants, and what questions should I ask when I'm with the broker? So is there laundry in the building? In all of your dorms you have a laundry room. Okay, you have to use coins, but it's there. A lot of buildings don't have it. My building doesn't have it. You can either go to a laundromat or you can pay by the pound for some place to do wash and fold. Some of them will deliver, and some of them will even pick it up from you as well. How's the water pressure? How annoying to pay the $4,500 fee, however much a month, and you get a trickle. That's so annoying. I would just say to the guy, can I just turn on the shower and check really quickly? Who's the landlord? What reputation do they have? Again, you don't want to get stuck with this terrible landlord who will not respond to what you need. Does the superintendent live here? What is the superintendent? The super handles your garbage and takes it out and your recyclables. They clean the common spaces of the building. When you clog your toilet or you have some problem, this is a person that you can call on in order to help you out for people who are not handy. I'm not particularly handy, so I tip the super when they do something for me, even if it's something that should have already been done. And I would also say to tip him when you move in, because you may get better service in the long run. That giving him $100 or a couple $100 at the beginning may make him pick up the phone at 3 in the morning when you have some problem, and if you didn't tip him, he might not. Unfortunately, that's how some of them operate. And then also, it's customary in New York to tip them at Christmas time. It acts as like a bonus for them. They're very low paid. They're given an apartment typically, so their salary is extremely low, and many of them count on that tip money. What will be done to the apartment before I move in? Generally, they're painted and repairs are made, but if you see something that you think should be done and you're not sure if it will be, my suggestion is just to confirm that. Can I paint it different colors? Do I need to paint it back to white? are there any active bed bug infestations? So I'm sure that you've heard about this, and those of you who are planning to move to New York, your parents are probably like, you want to move to New York, what about the bed bugs? Now it's law in New York City that a landlord disclose whether or not there's been an infestation in the building. They will indicate what floor it's been on. They're not required to indicate what apartment has been infested, and whether or not they've taken any steps to eradicate it. I mean, they're supposed to eradicate it as well, but the bottom line is whether the building has had it or whether it hasn't had it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll get it. I mean, the best thing to do is to vacuum a lot, use Murphy's oil soap to wash your wood surfaces. For some reason that repels them. There are cases you can put on your mattress. It's like the many other pests that exist in New York and other places. It's something that, it can happen. From Park Avenue to Uptown to the financial district, they're everywhere. But it's not, recently they have been better about eradicating them. So these are questions that a broker can't answer. Is it a safe area? Because of fair housing laws, I can't make any representations as to whether an area is safe or not. Because if I tell you it's really safe and then you get mugged the next week, then neither of us will be happy, really. What type of people live in this building? So again, because of fair housing laws, I can't say whether it's student-friendly or whether it's child-friendly. Or whatever. I can't make any representation. So if you're very interested in that, my suggestion is to hang out in front of the building or in the lobby, talk to people who live there, and figure it out for yourself. This one is just an unknown. How much will the rent go up next year? If you're renting a fair market apartment, anything over $2,500 a month is fair market. In New York, with the exception of a few new buildings that do offer rent stabilization, you never know. There's no way of knowing. So these are some websites that can be helpful to your apartment search. So StreetEasy, I would say that StreetEasy is the most used website right now for apartment rentals. Not every apartment is on any website. There are always some apartments that are not listed online or never even make it to the market. Yeah.
Do these websites have listings for non-New York apartments as well?
HotPads does. I'm going to talk a little bit later about Boston and DC. I think HotPads is in most major cities. StreetEasy is New York only. I would say the others are pretty much only New York. Craigslist is always good in other cities as well, outside of New York. So Urban Sherpa and Urban Edge are both no fee. Urban Edge has another section, a guide to cheap apartments, which has some helpful information. And as I said, HotPads not only has some links to certain listings, but it also has rent ranges, which I'm going to mention a little bit later. And then Roommates Wanted NYC has an event where you can do roommate speed dating. So one person will have a red sticker and one person will have a green sticker. I think red people they have housing and green people are looking for housing. You can go to this event and find a roommate. Craigslist, as you all know, Craigslist, it's a great way to find a roommate as well. I mentioned the bait and switch tactic that you want to avoid in the false listings, but do check the by owner listing. For example, my cousin found his apartment. He rents it directly from an owner. He lives in Harlem. And then also, Craigslist has a lot of entry-level jobs posted. When I mentioned that there are employers who are looking for someone within a few days, they might throw it on Craigslist, get a bunch of responses, interview people, and then they have their employee within a week. So another one that we can guess on. So this is near Columbia University Medical Center, and it's near the subway station at 168th and Broadway. So it's further up, but it's a great neighborhood because there's a lot of large apartments. There's the express train there, the A. So you can be in Midtown Manhattan in about 30 minutes, possibly less. I once made it from my West Village apartment to this building in 35 minutes door to door. So that's like from Lower Manhattan all the way up. So the A train is really quick. So this is one of the bedrooms. It faces the interior, but I don't know if you can see it. There's a little bit of kind of pre-war detail. Nice hardwood floors, long hallway. You could just see the space here. This is another bedroom. That one has 2 windows. Typical bathroom with a window. Huge kitchen with dishwasher, full-size gas range, a window. This is the living room, interior facing again. Not a lot of light, but again, the space is great. This is one of the bedrooms. That building is actually part of Columbia Medical Center. So it's got one bathroom. Another point that I want to make is I'll have a lot of people who have roommates and they'll come to me and say, do you have anything with 2 bathrooms? And there's 2 reasons that that's difficult to find. One is that the apartments that you've already seen, those buildings are probably about 70 or 80 years old. And at that point, their quality of life was different, and they didn't build 2 bathrooms very frequently. So because New York is an older city, that's a more difficult thing to find. If you do find it, it's going to cost more, obviously. So I mentioned that it's close to the subway. Any guesses for this one? Well, you guys were all wrong, so you don't want to guess anymore. Sorry.
3,000.
Sorry?
3,000.
3,000. Okay. Okay.
3,100.
31. Any others? 22. Okay. I don't remember. I have to check the slide. 26.50. So this one actually has a promotion right now that the owner is offering. If you sign a 2-year lease, they'll give you a free month. Who was closest on that last one? You were 22, and what was the other one? 31? 3. Oh, 3. Okay. You get a University of Rochester necktie, by the way, so you can pick that up after that. So with that free month, you average out to about $25.40, and this is another one, no fee. It's offered by the same company as the last one. So just to give you a comparison, either through Sex and the City, your own travels to New York, or just knowledge of the city, you're I'm sure familiar with the Upper East Side. So just to give you an idea, doorman versus non-doorman. The last 2 buildings were non-doorman. Doorman buildings, a studio apartment, the average rental price for last month was $25.94. So we're talking about a space that's anywhere from 350 to 650 square feet. It doesn't have a separate bedroom. $25.94. You can see the prices, and it changes a lot with non-doorman, but even without one, a studio apartment is $19.34. Manhattan can be expensive. So I added a couple of apartments outside of the city, outside of Manhattan. Bushwick is an emerging popular neighborhood. Williamsburg became very popular a few years ago and has just exploded with popularity development. So now a lot of people are moving a few subway stops into the borough to Bushwick, which is now very hot. So this is a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment. The building is 2 years old. It does not have an elevator or a doorman. So this is the living room. Nice big windows, a lot of light, renovated kitchen, granite countertops, nice cabinetry, full-size appliances there. This is the bedroom, again, nice and sunny, and the bathroom. Nothing special, but nicely done, certainly. And so this is about 20 minutes to Union Square. I don't know if you guys how familiar you are, but it's a major transportation hub in Lower Manhattan. It's near NYU, it's accessible to the F and L trains. That building is like steps from the train, so it's a very easy commute into the city. From Union Square, you can get to all other neighborhoods. So anybody want to try guessing this one?
2,800.
Okay.
2,800.
Okay.
1,650.
Uh-huh. Any others? 850. Okay. Okay, it's 1350. So the guy who guessed 1650 gets a Sotheby's Realty tote bag. So this one, there's a brokerage fee, $24.30. Like I said, most things are brokerage fees. Some of them don't have them.
Now, the brokerage fee is paid by the rentor all the time?
It is, yeah. I mean, if you're the renter and you're coming to the landlord and it's being offered to you as no fee, then the landlord will somehow compensate the listing agent. I don't know if that makes sense. But the person renting the apartment pays the fee. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Paid upfront in the beginning, or
The brokerage fee is paid at lease signing. Yep. Okay. So to give you an idea of just averages throughout the Bushwick neighborhood, so that one bedroom was right at the average price, $13.50. Look at that, 4-bedroom, $27.50. So that's as I said, a great alternative to Williamsburg and well served by public transportation. So just so you get a sense of what I'm comparing it to, this is the average pricing in Williamsburg. Williamsburg is very close to Manhattan. It's about 10 or 15 minutes on the L train to Union Square. And because of that, the prices are like Manhattan, because it's closer to get from Lower Manhattan to Williamsburg than it is to some of the stops on the Upper East Side. It's, there's great bars, great food, and it's also served by the J, M, and Z trains in the South Williamsburg section.
So what are you talking about time frame? How much further out than Bushwick and Williamsburg?
So I would say 20 or more minutes to Bushwick. So they are very close to each other. They border each other, so it's very close. So this is an idea of kind of the aesthetic of Williamsburg, this is a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment. Not a true loft. A true loft would be a commercial or industrial space that's been converted to residential. It has great exposed brick, nice lighting, beautiful floors. The bedroom is separated by that really cool frosted glass panel. A lot of windows. It's just a huge space. It's 1,350 square feet for a 1-bedroom. Nice kitchen. No dishwasher, but it does have full-size stainless steel appliances. The building has internet included in it, and a laundry room, free bike room in the basement. And so this one is the second stop in Brooklyn. So, it's probably about 15 minutes from Union Square as well. Any guesses for this one? I have another tote bag. So if you don't want the tote bag, don't guess. Guesses? Any guesses? Sorry? Okay. Anyone else?
2,800 again.
28? 25. Anyone else? This one's 4,200. And this, the owner, so this is another thing that you get, whether you're dealing directly with the owner or whether you're going through a broker, some owners have different requirements. So this one you have to put down a 2-month security deposit. So that's $8,400. Your brokerage fee is $75.60, and then you'll have to put down the first month of rent. So to rent a $4,200 a month apartment, any math major will give you the total of all that. I don't know the total.
$20,000 up front.
Thank you. That is a lot. So Astoria is another great neighborhood, an alternative to Manhattan. It's about 20 minutes to Midtown Manhattan. Astoria is in Queens. It's known for its great beer halls. It's got a very cultural feel to it. It's pretty clean, and you can see the prices there. Certainly more reasonable than Williamsburg and the Upper East Side, it's just very popular right now. So here are some other websites that you might find helpful. Seamlessweb.com, you can order food online. From my West Village apartment, 120 restaurants will deliver to me. And the great thing about Manhattan is that you can have virtually anything delivered to your door for the right price. Hopstop.com, you can check subway and bus directions. So if you see an apartment listed online, you find the address, you put it in, like, I think I'm going to be working in Midtown, this is where I would like to live, and you can check, how long your commute might be. Yelp.com can give you restaurant and business reviews. You probably have heard of that one before. Timeout.com, it has a lot of events and cultural information. Curved is a great real estate blog which has a lot of helpful information. That's a national website, by the way. Insurance.com. So if you do not have a relative who can guarantee your lease, by the way, a guarantor has to live in the United States, and a few management companies requires that the guarantor live in the tri-state area, and some even only take New York State guarantors. So that can be complicated. Insurance is an insurance company that will guarantee your lease for a fee, which is usually about a month or a month and a half of rent. So yes, another fee, but it's an option if you have no other choice. Trulia.com is a website that you can use to check neighborhood crime. You can also check local, you could just check with the police, actually, if your parents are concerned. Outside of the city, Boston, this gives you some ranges on pricing. Still a difficult market, third most competitive rental market in the U.S., behind New York and San Francisco, according to BostonRentalExchange.com. You know, because it's competitive, you'll find a lot of the things that are true of New York are true of Boston. You know, there's a lot of apartments are offered by brokers, and you know, because there are so many different towns that comprise Boston, there are more variables, but you may be more likely to find something directly from the owner. And then DC, here are some median rental prices. These are from hotpads.com. You know, they have a housing shortage lately as well. You know, some people are moving out of the district to some of the nearby communities. Landlords in DC don't use brokers really. And I would say to start looking a little bit further in advance in Washington. Craigslist, almost everything is on it. And you know, you can also just kind of walk around the neighborhood you're interested in. A lot of buildings have their own leasing office. One thing, maybe it's because there are so many lawyers in Washington, you will need 2 to 3 letters of reference. And parking is tricky there. Without DC tags and registration, you can only park there for a few weeks before they come and get you. Then at the lease signing, these are some things to keep in mind. You know, I wrote this, I know New York, so this is for New York, but I would say this is probably true in the other communities as well. Generally, you know, I've had people who sit down at the lease signing and they're like, oh, I don't like that clause, I don't like that one. You know, they're not really going to change the lease. It's a rare event in my 4.5-year career that's happened. I would just read it to know what's in there and check that all the pertinent information is correct. If there's something particular that you need or are concerned about, maybe ask to look at it before the lease signing so you don't get in there, read it, and then you leave without having signed a lease because you're not happy. You need the first month of rent, a security deposit, which is usually 1 month, but you know, it can vary. A brokerage fee if applicable. Then the other thing is landlords in New York will not take personal checks at lease signing. You have to go to your bank and get a certified check, which is almost like cash. It costs about $15. You know, I've had many people walk out without their keys because even though they were told that, they somehow didn't make the connection. So once you have your apartment, you can start paying with personal checks. So just before do you guys have any questions about some of the slides that I just mentioned? Yeah.
You mentioned in the beginning that when you check your income, they make sure that it's 4 times on average.
Mm-hmm.
Does that include the utility fees that you also are paid?
No. No, they're just looking at the rent versus your income. Mm-hmm.
Catch-22, if you're getting an apartment before you get a job and you don't have any ticket stubs or you don't have a salary that you can do 4 times, but you know you're going to have the job next, you know, you're starting soon, but you don't have to pay any.
Yeah. You know, as a recent graduate or as a student, you know, you'll fill out the application, they'll do the credit check on you anyway, and you'll just give whatever you have. If you don't have the tax returns, you know, you'll need a guarantor anyway, so they'll just look at your parents' information at that point. They'll probably, you know, look at your bank statement just to see that you have one and you have $100 in it or something. Yeah, they won't need that. Mm-hmm.
What if you're lacking a guarantor? What's
It's, you know, either insurant or I would get a roommate. I mean, it's.
so like you can have more than one guarantor between the 2 roommates to add up to the amount?
Yeah, you can have as many guarantors as you need. Yeah.
People who make less than that.
Yeah, anyone who's willing to do it. It doesn't have to be a parent. It's just that that's the most common person that people choose. Yep.
You mentioned tipping your super, but what about tipping the doorman? How much do people normally tip during holidays?
Oh, yeah. So usually you can go to your building, maybe the super or one of the staff members. A lot of buildings have their own guide where they give you suggestions, and generally in most of the New York publications, like New York Magazine or something, they will publish the information and say this is what's suggested. Some people have emailed me, you know, they were my client and they're like, you know, how much do you think I should tip them? And I just send them links to these articles. But you know, generally the super and the most senior people, you would tip them more, and then people who haven't been there as long or doormen you don't like, you would just give them less money. Any other questions? Yeah, it's an exciting journey once you're done with all of the stressful stuff. And you know, the last piece of advice that I want to give you today is to stay connected to the University of Rochester. Take all the wonderful experiences you've had, all the relationships you've formed, and the knowledge you've accumulated into the world with you wherever you go. UR has given me so much and helped me in so many ways that I choose to give back my time and money so that others may have the same experience that I've had. Giving back to UR and being here today is incredibly gratifying for me. In giving, I continue to receive from UR as well. Matt Siegel asked me to be part of the George Eastman Circle, where I commit to give specific amounts of money to UR over the next few years, and I was pleased to say yes. From that gift, I receive recognition and gratitude from the UR community, which makes me feel good. I receive invitations to fantastic events where I can stay in touch with old friends, meet new friends, as well as potential clients, and I can hear speakers who entertain and enrich my life. Most of all, giving back helps me to maintain my relationship with this incredible institution to which I am extremely grateful. And I urge you to do the same. A great start is to contribute to the senior gift campaign, and there's pledge forms on the table. Meliora applies not only to this dynamic university that is constantly improving and staying ahead of the rest, but also to every individual who's affiliated with it. Keep learning, keep growing, and follow your dreams. Believe in yourself. Thank you for allowing me to be here today, and if you guys have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And also, if you want an electronic copy of the presentation, you can sign one of these forms over here if you haven't already done so, and thank you again.